In this video, we're going to talk about solving an absolute value equation. I'm going to show you two different methods of solving. At the end of the video, pick which one you like the best and stick with it while you're working on these problems. So let's solve this one. We have the absolute value of x equals 2 times x plus 1. So let's write out our first method. So we have our positive part, the x equals 2x plus 1, and then we have our negative part. Negative x equals 2x plus 1. Okay, so let's solve the first equation here. So we want to subtract 1x from each expression. So we have 0 equals x plus 1. Subtract 1 from each expression. And then we have negative 1 equals x. And then we'll check this solution to see if it's real or extraneous by plugging it into the original equation. So, is the absolute value of negative 1 equal to 2 times negative 1 plus 1? The absolute value of a number is going to be a positive number, since it's the distance away from 0, and distance is positive. Is 1 equal to negative 2 plus 1? Is 1 equal to negative 1? No, that's false. So that means that x equals negative 1 is an extraneous solution. Now let's look at this again and write out the verbal steps. So our first step here is to subtract 1x from each expression. Our next step is to subtract 1 from each expression. Once we get our solution, we check for extraneous. By plugging into the original equation. Since the result is a false statement, x equals negative 1 is an extraneous solution. This was method 1 for solving this equation. Now let's look at method 2. So our positive part is going to be exactly the same. X equals 2x plus 1. And everything for this positive part will be exactly the same as this first method. Here's where the method is a little bit different. So for our negative part, we have x equals negative parentheses 2x plus 1. And we're going to distribute that negative sign to each term. So we have x equals negative 2x minus 1. Subtract x, subtract the x. We have 0 equals negative 3x minus 1. Add 1 to each expression, both sides. So we have 1 equals negative 3x. From here we want to divide each term by negative 3 to get the x isolated. So negative 3x divided by negative 3 is 1x. So we have negative 1/3 equals x. And that's the same thing that we got on this last example. X equals negative 1/3. So both methods will give you both of the same answers. Let's talk about the verbal steps for this method. So the first step, step 1, would be to distribute. Multiply each term by negative 1. Step 2, subtract the 1x from each expression. And step 3, add 1 to each expression. And then step 4, we're going to check for extraneous by plugging it back into the original equation. So let's check for the extraneous again. So we have the absolute value of negative 1/3. Is it equal to 2 times negative 1/3 plus 1. Again, if you take the absolute value of something, that something will always be positive. So is 1/3 equal to negative 2/3 plus 1? Again, we want to change this fraction to make it the same, so we can add these together and they'll be like terms. Multiply the 1/1 by the unity fraction 3/3. Multiply the negative 2/3 term by the unity fraction 1/1. So do we have, is 1/3 equal to negative 2 thirds plus 3 thirds. So is 1/3 equal to negative 2 plus 3 all over 3? Yes, 1/3 is equal to 1/3. We get a true statement here, so x equals negative 1/3 is a real solution. So, after looking at both of these examples, both methods of the same example, which method do you like better? Method 2 or method 1? Notice the positive part is exactly the same on both method 1 and method 2. The only thing that's different is that on method 1 you multiply the left side by negative and you leave the right side alone. And on method 2 you leave the left side alone and you multiply the right side by negative 1. Either method will always work. It's up to you to choose which one you like the best.